everybody. Welcome to the Limit Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Gibson. Phil, unfortunately, had an emergency. He had to go take care of some plumbing for some folks that were having an emergency at their house. So Phil won't be here for this episode, but wanted to get an episode out there. I know it's been a while. Apologize for that. We're trying to do basically every other week from now on out. It's springtime, so getting fishermen on a fishing podcast is very difficult to do. And we're all really, really busy right now, but man, it is heating up here in Indiana, and we are finally getting out on the water and catching some fish. And something I've been throwing has been the PH fishing swim jig. Hand tied skirt on this, come in a few different sizes, some really, really nice colors, white, black and blue, the classics, and then there's a bluegill color. There's all kinds of different colors. Comes with the right, what I call the right weed guard and the right hook. The weed guard isn't so thick that it gets in the way of hook sets and things like that. But it does allow it to come through brush and grass very, very well. So check those out, phfishing-.com. Also, they have rods. This is the PH Fishing Limit Series, and this is the 7.4 glass rod. Very, very light for a glass rod. It's 100% glass, 7.4. Really, really great for ripping chatterbaits. You can see I have a chatterbait on there. Ripping those chatterbaits out of grass, and just an all-around really, really great rod. Again, those are available at phfishing.com. So today I am honored to have my buddy Joe Gentry on. Joe's a kayak angler here in Indiana. I've known Joe for many, many years. He also has ventured into the bait side and doing some painting, doing some creative things with baits. He's got a glide bait that I'm not sure he wants to talk about is going to come out or not, but he's got a resin glide bait he's been working on, some other things. So with that, I'll bring my buddy Joe Gentry on. Joe, welcome to the show, bud.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Hey, how's it going down there?
Not too bad. Still getting a lot of rain, like we
Yeah,
have been for about the past week. It seems like.
yeah. If it's not rain, it's wind. So it's one thing or the other. It seems like here in central Indiana. So
Yeah, it doesn't look like it's gonna stop anytime soon. It looks like it's forecasted for at least the next 3 or 4 days. It looks like.
yeah,
So.
yeah, going to be a little bit tough fishing, but yeah. I mean, I kind of gave you a brief introduction there. Where are you at? Where'd you originate from, and kind of what do you like fishing here in Indiana?
Well, I grew up down in the Edinburgh area, and spent my whole childhood there and early adulthood, and lived out in Nineveh, Indiana for a little bit, near Trafalgar. I don't know if anybody will know that area, but very close to Camp Atterbury and the Atterbury Fish and Wildlife area. So I spent a lot of my years fishing that small, marshy, weedy,
Hmm.
areas out there. Um, Traveled around a little bit too over the years in the kayak tournament scene and stuff like that. So, I've been up with you to northern Indiana, not too many times, but the experience I have had up there, I really like that style of fishing up there, and a lot of the water that you've shown me and some of the stuff that I've been on for tournaments and things like that. So it's definitely a big change from Atterbury and the shallow marshy stuff. It looks like you can walk across some of the lakes I'm used to fishing. So when I get open water, it's almost a shock for me. It seems like so.
Yeah, those lakes down there are something else. Is that kind of what led you to kayak fishing? Was fishing and getting access to those lakes? Is that kind of what drove you to kayaks, or?
Uh, Honestly, no. I feel like probably with a lot of people, I think it was a money thing.
Mm,
When I was a kid, I used to watch Bassmaster and on the weekends and those guys, and I'd watch the Classic and I'd watch the FLW tour and stuff like that. And I thought, that's
sure.
gonna be me one day. As soon as I'm old enough, I'm gonna get a bass boat and a truck. And when that time came, I didn't realize it was gonna take $500,000 to make all that happen. So.
Yeah.
I did have a boat for a little while, but it was just so much maintenance and so much, you know, it almost took so much effort to get it on and off the water that by the time I had the time to go, I just didn't feel like messing with it. So I kind of got rid of a tracker boat that I had, and I I went down to Bass Pro and got one of those Ascend kayaks kind of on a whim, just to, like you said, just to have access to the water to get off the bank, and immediately fell in love with it. And that's all she wrote. I think I fished some Wildcat Creek Outfitters tournaments back before the name changed to Moving Waters, and won a feel free kayak early on and fished out of those for a few years, and then kind of moved up from there. So
Yeah, and actually, a number of years ago, I went to a show at Ted's Aqua Marine down on the south side of Indianapolis,
yeah.
and that's where I met you and Brian Crossan and Jason Young, and that's what started my kayak journey. I remember that show, and you guys were down there. Indiana Kayak Anglers had a small booth, and I think you were at that time maybe doing a little taxidermy or doing
Yeah,
a little bit of this and that.
I was kind of dabbling in the I've always gone back and forth with actual taxidermy, like the deer and stuff like that, but it's just such a process, and it's a messy sometimes, and I'm not set up for it, and I stay so busy with everything else that I haven't really messed with it too much for a while. But I've kind of gone back and forth and dabbled in the fish replica stuff for a while, and I gave like a short little seminar thing down there on the stage. They gave me a quick little opportunity, which was cool, to talk about that. But yeah, I remember that show. That was pretty neat. That was my first. I want to say that was either after my first year or during my first year fishing IKA, and that was my first experiences with tournaments at all. I remember the very first thing I ever went to was Hirschtown Reservoir,
Oh
and
boy,
it was actually a multi-species tournament. And
yeah.
I didn't even know. Like I was out there smashing the smallmouth. That's where I met Justin Long. I went to the
Oh,
very end of that reservoir, and I thought I've got this whole lake to myself down here. And I saw a Hobie kayak with some shark teeth on the front of it. And I met Justin, and we chatted for a while. And like I said, I was tearing up the smallmouth, and I ran into somebody on the way back in. And next thing you know, they're talking about how they couldn't catch walleye and they couldn't catch crappie. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And they're like, yeah, this is a multi-species. And so I didn't even read the rules well enough to even know what I was doing, but it was a good time. Me and a buddy that lived down the street from me at the time stayed in a hotel and fished that lake up there, and it was a cool experience. And that was enough to hook me. I met a few people that still fish in the tournaments. I think I met Aiden Darlington. That was the first time I'd seen him up there. Yeah, several people. So it was a good time, and I've been kind of doing the kayak tournament stuff off and on ever since.
yeah, man. Aiden Darlington's probably the best bass fisherman in Indiana that nobody knows,
Yeah.
except for the kayak guys. I mean, he is. He
With a
puts
Ned rig, with a Ned
he
rig. He doesn't need anything else. He doesn't need
no,
forward facing sonar or
no.
glide baits or any of that stuff. Just give him a box of Ned rig heads and some worms or whatever he's putting on there, Ned worms, and he's good to go.
Yeah, just a natural ability to find fish, man. It was something else watching him on the water. But yeah, I mean, back in those days too, that was that was there were some photos being taken on a phone. There were some being taken on a on back then a digital camera. I mean, that was kind of the wild west days of kayak fishing.
Oh yeah, I remember. I remember the first few tournaments I went to. There were guys out there in those little bitty like sit-in sun dolphins, and I'm
Yeah,
not saying that can't get the job done, but I can't imagine spending 8 hours on the water tucked inside one of those little things.
yeah,
But yeah, back then it was a lot of DIY and a lot of small. This was before motors and any of that stuff. So
yeah.
sports definitely grown
Pedal drives were like
tremendously since then.
pedal drives were like it back then. That was like the luxury thing back then. I mean, I think so. I think I'm about a year after you when I got involved with Indiana Kayak Anglers and started fishing the series, and haven't missed a year since. And it's been, gosh, I was trying to add it up the other day. It's either been 10 or 11 years, I think, which is just hard to believe. I mean, that's
Yeah, that
incredible.
sounds about right. Because I want to say not that there was a ton of people involved or a ton of competition or whatever, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but I think I got Angler of the Year that first year that I fished with
Hmm.
IKA, and I want to say that was either 2015 or 2016. So yeah, it's right around 10 or 11 years or something like that since I maybe I was fishing out of a kayak for maybe a year before that.
Yeah. Yeah, wow. Yeah, that's, I mean, just a flood of memories come back. I mean, my first tournament was out on Geist Reservoir, and it was, I think there were 47 anglers. Um, and we stood in line and gave them our best. Back then it was three fish. And
Yeah.
we would tell, we'd report in what it was, and then they would come back and they would double check it after check in. And I think I got third that one. And I was like, wow, this is awesome. And just, just like you've seen the kayak community grow. Kayak community in Indiana is just tremendous. I mean, such great support around here from everybody.
Yeah, for sure. There's there, and I've said it before. I don't want to. Maybe I shouldn't say this, but almost too much going on now. There's
Hmm,
so many different tournament series, and it's
sure.
just not too much. It's just hard to keep up with for me. I joke sometimes saying I need a secretary or something to manage it all for me and plan, because as soon as I start thinking about getting into all these, then your schedule gets all jumbled up, and it's hard to squeeze in a lot of that stuff. And the more there is, the more I just want to do it. I'd fish every tournament out there if I could, but
Yeah.
life has a way of humbling you when it comes to that. So
Sure, sure. Yeah. And with me doing the podcast and doing some other things, some media things and being on pro teams and stuff like that, the closer and the more you get kind of into this whole deal, the further away you get from fishing, unfortunately. So,
yeah, for sure. I find myself, I'll want to go, and then I'll think, well, I need to get that next long form YouTube video
mm,
out and recorded, and then tomorrow I've got to edit and get it
yeah,
uploaded, and
yeah,
I got to get those baits painted for such and such, because I told them that I'd send them out by Monday, and
yeah.
so I feel you there for sure.
Yeah, I guess let's get into that. So letter G custom baits. So that's something you started about has it been over a year now, Joe?
Yeah, I want to say it's coming up on about a year and a half.
Okay.
I got it started last year before the show season started and stuff like that. So it's been about a year and a half since I kind of officially came up with a name and kind of got things going like that. And I just I actually started painting replicas for fish years ago. That kind of started just from and I don't mean to get off topic right off the bat, but uh, I started painting replicas years ago, and a buddy of mine had some actual taxidermy work, skin mounts done, and they were god awful. I won't mention the name. I don't even remember who it was, but it was somebody down south, and I don't think they're in business anymore. But he showed me these fish, and I'm like, man, like you've got to let me get a hold of a replica or something, so you can, to do you right. So that's what started my airbrushing and painting journey. Back then, that was 15 plus years ago, probably.
Hmm.
Dabbled in that for a while and started painting baits, but I never really got the setup and everything down. And that was back when there was a lot less information. And, now there's like lure pages and YouTube videos and all kinds of stuff that, anybody can get started in it and kind of find the information they need, at least a little bit. Um, and I kind of dabbled in the bait painting stuff back then, but it didn't really catch on. I didn't really, it didn't bite me like it has recently. And I don't really even know what exactly got me started in. I think I was just watching some videos one night, and I was watching. I think it was Piz is the name. It's a guy out in like California or something, and he was just talking about how he got started, and he started making those resin glides. And I'm like, that just sounds like something I'd want to do for myself. I just want to make a bait, carve it, make a mold of it, make a few of them, paint them up or whatever, and just go out and throw them and catch fish. That's kind of what got me interested in it. And I was actually messing with the resin glide before I started uh, painting blanks and stuff. And then I work in for a property management company, and I was in a garage one day in a vacant property, and there was like one little cabinet in the corner of this garage, and I opened up that little door, and there was a cheap glide bait laying in there from like
Uh,
Amazon. It was one of those cheap
yeah.
Amazon glide baits, and it was all beat up and scratched up, looked like somebody had been dragging it behind a pickup truck down the street. And I brought that home and roughed it up and primed it and painted it up, and I got a lot of compliments and stuff on it on Facebook and whatnot. And I thought, what the heck, I've already got a little bit of stuff going here. I'll see where it goes. And then I started and that's kind of where the addiction begins. It's like you get online and
Yeah.
you start looking at some of these
Right.
shops that carry all these blanks, and I'm like, man, I can buy those, and I'm gonna buy those, and
Yeah.
the prices seem right, and it's like, what next thing you know, I've got hundreds or $1,000 worth of blanks piled up in my
Yeah.
shop, and so I started tossing around the idea of starting a little side business and painting some baits up to sell. And at the time, I think I had maybe shortly after I started out, I met a couple other guys that were doing it, and they had a little bit of success with it. And I thought, what the heck, it's another community to get involved with and a little hobby to do on the side. It's, like I said, sometimes it's hard to get out and make it all the
Yeah.
way to the lake, but it's a lot easier to step out of the kitchen into the shop and mess around a little bit or whatever. It's like a little getaway. Every
Sure.
time I get out there, get out and relax, and it's almost like a form of therapy for me to get out and just relax my mind and paint a little bit and get creative. And because I went, I've always been super creative. I remember back when I was a kid, people were like, "Oh, you're going to be a famous artist or whatever." And then, adulthood came along and got interested in women and all that stuff and started running around and kind of put that
Yeah.
stuff aside for a long time. But yeah, I've always just had a passion for fishing, and ever since I was little, and I've always loved being creative and being artistic. So this is a good opportunity to combine the two things and have some fun with it, and also make a little money on the side. So
Sure, sure. No, that's great. That's awesome. And yeah, I mean, your stuff it looks great, and it's been awesome seeing you from kind of the beginning to where you are now. One of the biggest things I see is your finish. Your finish work is just top notch and so clean. And you mentioned it earlier. You have a YouTube page. What's that YouTube channel?
uh, so basically, I just made it simple for everybody. Everything I have is all letter G custom baits. So if you search up letter G custom baits on YouTube, that's my YouTube channel. And then I have Instagram, TikTok. I have an Etsy shop that I sell, that I just opened up literally just a few weeks ago. And everything's under the same letter G custom baits
And that's
name. So,
LETR
yeah,
space G.
yeah. So you say it like you're saying the letter G, but I guess I'll tell that story real quick if we have time.
Yeah.
I was with my younger daughter, and we were trying to come up. She's also very creative. She likes, if there's projects to be done, or stuff like that, like artistic stuff. She's my one out of the four kids that really like to get involved in that. And we were down there kind of brainstorming, and anytime I talk about stuff like that, like I got two sons that are obsessed with YouTube, and one of them thinks he's going to be a YouTube star one day, and doesn't even know how or what it's going to be about. He just wants to have a YouTube. That's the cool thing for these kids these days. And we were down there brainstorming about what the business name would be and all that. And I think I was using a chat GPT or one of those AI things to try to make some sort of logo. And at first I was just using the letter G, for Gentry. And
Mhm.
and then I thought, well, hang on a second, letter G. And then I started thinking about it, and we were talking, and I was like, okay, so I made the LETR is actually the initials of my children. So Lake and Eliza Turner Rhett. That's the
There
where the
we
letter
go.
comes from. The G's for Gentry, and then I threw a logo together, and I tried to use AI to make a logo for the longest, and it just kept giving me goofy stuff. And I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna have to do this from scratch. And it means more to me now that I did.
Sure, sure,
I see
absolutely.
logos all the time that I can tell were just made on, an AI thing and slapped together in 5 seconds with no thought put into it. And there's nothing wrong with that. Logos are logos, but the fact that I kind of made that with them, and kind of made it from scratch or whatever, kind of means a little bit to me. So yeah, that's just a little tidbit of where that name comes from. Because I know sometimes people are saying it and they're like, "Am I saying that right?" Or
Yeah,
maybe it is a little difficult. Rather than something like Big Bass Lures or whatever. But it is what it is. I'm gonna stick with it. I think it's caught on enough now that
sure. Yep.
I think it's gonna stick around.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. And yeah, I don't think I knew the full story there, and I knew some of it, but man, what a great story. And yeah, having something to mean something and is unique too anymore. It's so impossible. Baits, names, logos, podcast names, everything else. It's like impossible to find something that hasn't been done, hasn't been used. So I've always really liked it and thought it. made you stand out a little bit more than a
Well,
lot
thank
of
you. I
different
appreciate
people.
that. Yeah, like
Yeah,
you said, it's kind of like I always use the analogy of like a lawn mowing companies. It's like everybody has one now.
yeah,
If you even if somebody's cut one yard, they've got a business and a mower and a weed eater and or whatever, and that's how,
yeah.
like you said, whether it's bait companies or soft plastic guys or podcasts, YouTube channels, everybody's got something going on now, and it's hard to, like you said, it's very hard to stand out and be different, and that's kind of what that's kind of what I've been trying to do. I'm not just going out and throwing together patterns to say that I'm painting baits or just getting on Bass Pro or whatever and saying, okay,
Mm-mm.
this is what's popular. I'm just going to paint a bunch of these and sell them to make money. Like I kind of pride myself on my work and my finish work, and it's actually what you were talking about my finish as far as the clear coat and stuff. That's actually what really kind of gave my YouTube channel a jump start was I guess there's a lot of people out there, and I believe it because I did too myself when I really started digging into this bait stuff. I was struggling to get the clear coat process right, and to me, that makes a difference because I don't care how good the paint job is, if it's going to chip off or if it's just going to look sloppy, if it looks like it's
Mm-hmm.
runny or globby or lopsided or whatever. And that's also going to affect, depending on what kind of clear coat you're using. If you're using UV or something like that, that stuff does have some weight to it. So if it's lopsided and it's a glide bait or a walking bait or something like that, it's going to affect the action. So I really just wanted to be thorough and wanted to bring a good product, the best product I can to people as far as what I'm capable of in my shop. I'm not running a high-end factory or anything like that. And the other thing is just the main thing for me that I focus on or that I'm interested in doing is the realistic paint jobs. I'm
Mm-hmm.
really into the realism, and I'll do some off the wall, bright colors and stuff like that too. But I think that kind of ties in with the replica stuff. I have a lot of patterns that I basically paint like I would, kind of on a reduced version of a replica.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. So out there, I mean, there's a lot of things out there now, and it's a little bit of a touchy subject, I think. But knock, these blanks. A lot of people call them knockoffs. You'll see KOs. You'll see, a lot them named a lot of different things. These blanks. Um, and it's tough to tell what you're getting from somebody that's painting something for you. But I guess talk a little bit about your thoughts on some of the knockoff stuff or some of the blanks that you can get, and talk about the quality anymore that you're seeing versus kind of what it was before.
well, quality is an issue. There are plenty of blank suppliers out there, whether you're buying directly from China or stuff off of Amazon. You do have to keep your eye on it. For the most part, I give everything. I mean, for one, I've already kind of gone through that process with my business as far as like what's good and what's bad.
Hmm.
Even with stuff that I've painted for you or other people or whatever. If I get
Yeah.
feedback and they're like, "Hey, man, these crankbaits, you can't tune them. They don't swim right," or this topwater lure sinks like a rock or whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
I'm not going to keep buying that. I'm not just painting stuff to make it look pretty and then not caring, if it's going to catch fish. I want it to catch fish and have good action too. So that's something that you got to kind of screen as you go, as you're buying stuff. And a lot of times, if you're buying off of the places in America that supply the stuff that they're getting from China, it's all coming from overseas, no matter what.
Right.
Unless you're making resin blanks or whatever, you're buying it from overseas and it's mass produced in a factory. Um, but if you're buying from here in the States, like a supplier, you're buying from Amazon, if you're just getting started or whatever, if anybody's watching this that wants to try this stuff out, you can buy small quantities at a time. You can buy one blank or 10 blanks or whatever, and just give them a shot and try them out. And if they seem to work for you, great. You got some affordable baits. And if not, then, you only wasted 10 or $20 maybe or whatever. So, um, but yeah, as far as my thoughts on everybody going on about knockoffs and stuff, like we've had some conversations before. I've been
Mm-hmm.
on some of these swim bait pages and lure pages and stuff like that, and most of the lure pages I'm involved with on social media, they're all painters like myself, so they're all in the
Okay.
same boat. They're
Yeah.
all buying blanks mostly from where we share, who's good to buy from, who's bad, don't buy this junk from this guy, but this guy has great quality, whatever. And a lot of the guys that are supplying the blanks in America, test them out and screen them or whatever. I don't know what their quality control process is. I'm not going to claim to know that. I don't know if they're looking at every single blank or if it's a setup like I've seen in factories before where like every 20 that come through they're eyeballing or what, I don't know. But there is some sort of form of quality control there to where they're not just selling junk that's going to leak or crack or bust open or whatever. Um, but that is kind of a hot topic, and it has been for a long time as far as knockoffs and stuff go. And it is kind of a gray area for me. I don't know which side of the fence I'm on. I mean, I'm definitely not trying to advocate for companies to say if there's a popular resin bait on the market right now that guy's, busting his butt to make and sweat away in his garage. I definitely don't like the idea of a company swooping in or someone coming in and
Sure.
getting that blank, immediately making a mold of it, and then making a million plastic versions of it and selling it. But at the same time, there's a lot of other situations that are different where, there are resin baits or like baits that aren't even made anymore or baits that are impossible to get your hands on, baits that might cost $1,000 on eBay if you do want to own
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Um, Guys that are, I was just watching a YouTube video the other day. It was that Geoffrey or Jeffrey guy or whatever, popular swim bait guy on YouTube.
Hmm.
And he flat out put a guy's name out there. He's like, here's one of these baits I finally got after like 3 years. And he said, at this point, I think he's taking orders and taking people's money. And he's not even, it's not even a promise that you're ever even going to get your bait.
Yeah.
So, when plastic blanks become available online and you can buy those for cheaper, and they're available to the everyday guy just to get somebody out on the water and start throwing glide baits or whatever, I'm not against that. So, there's two sides to it. But, there's just I think there's a lot of people out there that have invested a lot of money in the real stuff, thousands of dollars, and in some cases that might only be half a dozen baits.
Mhm.
But I think some of those guys are a little salty because now they're seeing, this other dude throwing a bait that looks just like theirs for $30 or $50 versus the bait they paid 400 for or whatever. And I'm not saying that they're the same. I'm not going to go out and say that. I'm not going to say that a plastic, Hinkle shad swims and looks just like the original because I don't even own one. I'm not ever going to own one. I'm not going to throw that kind of money into a bait.
Mhm.
That's part of what got me into painting, blanks and stuff to begin with because it's affordable.
Right.
But you look at a company like KGB, they have the Chad Chad, and he kind of did it for himself. Everybody's knocking baits off, and he's like, "Hey, I'll make a deal with somebody, and we'll knock the bait off ourselves and sell it." It's kind of
Yeah.
a genius idea.
Yeah.
And I looked that up the other day. I think I was telling somebody about that. I looked it up. I was like, "Where does Spro get these blanks from?" Overseas, most likely China. And you
Mhm.
can buy those blanks, plastic Chad Chad blanks. They don't call them Chad Chad blanks. I don't remember. They call them bad Chads or something. There's always some sort of
Yeah.
rhyming name or whatever,
Yeah.
some
Right.
goofy thing.
Yeah.
But I would not be surprised at all to find out that that blank comes from the same exact factory that Spro's getting theirs from. And honestly, from a legal standpoint, I don't know how that works. I don't know how a company can legally blatantly copy a bait like scale for scale and just change the name and sell it. But maybe that's
Yeah.
that's the world we live in. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it's awfully tough anymore, and I'm right there with you. I mean, I've been throwing swim baits for a number of years now. Glide baits. Our buddy Andy Knott introduced me to them. And back then there wasn't even an opportunity to really get a good knockoff blank or get a blank that was plastic even. So back then it really limited me to what I could buy, what I could afford to buy, what I was willing to buy, all of those things. And man, with what I've seen from from a few different company, Bose Bait Co. here in Kokomo, Letter G, all your stuff. With you guys kind of looking through some of those and testing them and looking at how they perform on the water. I mean, I've got uh, a few of your knockoffs, some of your plastic baits. And I'll be honest with you, I have more of an appetite throwing those in the river, throwing those in places uh, that one thing is going to be more durable than what a resin is. It's just going to be. And another thing is, it may not be exactly like resin, but it's pretty damn close. It's close enough that somebody that I feel comfortable enough. If somebody's trying to get into the swim bait game, I always point them towards you and Bo because they can get a really good quality bait with quality hooks, quality hangers, all the quality components needed, and not pay an arm and a leg, and not be in that $150 to $250 range for one bait. I mean, you think about 150, $250 with you. I mean, somebody's going to get more than one bait. They're going to
Oh yeah.
get, what's that going to get somebody to trying to do math? Four or five baits?
Depending on what it is, yeah. If you're comparing apples to apples, you can buy almost half a dozen glide baits to the price of one that you have to
Yeah.
have your finger on the mouse for at a drop for $250 or $150 or
Hmm.
whatever. Um, but in the resin world's defense, they're a lot more customizable. You're not gonna find a plastic blank that you can pull apart and
Hmm.
adjust the connection and make it glide different. Or I mean, you can get like the stick-on weights, or there's all kinds of products that you can add
Yep.
weight to them.
Yep.
But there are a lot of resin glides on the market that have like pockets that you can add weight to and stuff like that. So that is
Hmm.
kind of nice. But like you said, as far as like durability and stuff, I mean, I don't really see that much of a difference. I've literally seen like the biggest names in the game that have plenty of money that have resin glides. You might as well just make the baits and not paint them or anything, because by the time they've caught a few fish on them or whatever, that's all gone, and it just looks like your dog chewed the bait up.
Yep.
And the action's what's catching the fish. It's not necessarily the paint job or the finish anymore, because that's chewed up on some of those baits, and those guys are still fishing them and catching fish. So
Hmm.
I have a handful of baits that I've been throwing since I started, and they still look really good. They're not chewed up real bad, and I'm not going out and catching 30-pound bags with it every weekend, but
Right.
I'm beating it up and throwing it around and getting it hung up and all that stuff. And I'm just saying, for the price, I guess, for what you have to invest in a 20, 30, 40, $50 glide bait versus a couple $100, like I'm happy with what I'd get out of it. If I was buying these instead of painting them and making them myself, I'd be perfectly content with it.
Yeah, and then when you're ready, and you feel comfortable, you understand the bait, you understand how to work it, you understand, and you're not getting hung up constantly, you're not throwing it up in a tree, then you can move to that resin bait. And it's kind of like a stepping stool. I went backwards. I went from resin baits to kind of more plastic baits now, but I do enjoy resin baits. They definitely have their benefits. And speaking of resin baits, man, that one that you made me almost 6 7 months ago, man, that thing is awesome too. How's that coming along? Are you still kind of pursuing that one, or?
Yeah, so the big thing is with those resin baits is it's already the game's kind of already advanced beyond where I'm at just since I've started. Like I said, I was watching some videos and how to do it, and guys were hand carving, out of soft woods like balsa or basswood or cedar or something like that. Like the glide bait you have was the original was carved out of a piece of red cedar that I had laying around. And I just watched some tutorials online, and I thought, well, I've have a lifetime of experience of woodworking and stuff already anyway, so that was pretty simple stuff for me. But now there's already guys that are 3D printing the blanks. There's no the design is all online, it's all digital. It's just
Hmm.
draw a picture in a program online, 3D print it. If you go out and swim it and it's got a goofy action and you want to tweak it a little bit, you don't have to spend hours carving that bait again. You can go back, click a few buttons, print another one out, and be out there in a day or two, testing out a new prototype or whatever. And
Sure.
there's also companies now that are offering that's probably the biggest struggle I had was actually making the mold for the resin with silicone. getting that right and getting it precise to where you're pulling a solid bait out every time is also very difficult. That's something I struggled with, and now I've seen where there's companies out that are offering that service that like CNC the molds and stuff, and somehow because it's when you see it, it's as sharp and precise as you can get, and you can tell it's done with a machine. I know
Yeah.
like Henry Barber, I think's the name. If you're familiar with that kid, he's got a really popular glide bait out, and he just put a TikTok video out the other day and said that he spent thousands of dollars. Well, specifically, he said he could, I guess he could have had a really cheap first car, but he said I spent more money on this mold than I did my first car to get this mold
Wow.
made. And when you see it, you can tell
Yeah.
it's got all these little pockets and stuff in it to where you can put the hook hangers in it and the swiveling hook hangers and lips, and you put it all in there and pour the resin. And when you pop it out, I mean, it's you're like 90% there
Hmm.
already, and then you touch it up a little bit and paint it and get it looking good, and you've got a $150, $200 value resin bait. But like I said, when I first started out, I just hand carved it and made the mold. I mean, I'm messing around with Legos and Play-Doh, and anybody that's familiar with the process will know what I'm talking about. And it's difficult to get it going, and that's kind of where I'm at right now. Is I have a workable bait, as you know, and
Yeah.
I know. I mean, I have video of I think I caught a 4 pounder on one, and that was the goofy one that I put all the fins and stuff on just
Hmm.
to see what it would do. I don't think I want my finished bait to have that much stuff going on. But yeah, I think I'm just at a point where now that I have the first design as far as how I want it to look, I'm in the process of kind of getting that smoothed down and just getting it as perfect as I can, and then I'm going to make a brand new mold of that bait.
Okay.
So the blanks coming out of the mold aren't so rough.
Yeah.
And then once I get that, I'm going to try to kind of put it into production and start being able to do small drops. Maybe 20 baits or 50 baits or whatever I
Yeah.
can get going every so many months or whatever. Just to and obviously if they catch on, like you said, there's a lot of people out there making resin blanks and stuff. So I'm not the only one doing it. I will say I don't know too many people that are doing it, locally here. And I know that kind of seems to be the name of the game. I know there's some
Hmm.
big names out there, like I said, like KGB and a few of those other guys that it doesn't matter. There might be guys buying those up from other countries or
Hmm.
whatever, but I do know there's a lot of guys that are making them, and a lot of their sales and stuff are local, and that's fine because I'm all about people. I'm all about it myself, supporting local businesses and
Sure.
getting support from locals. So I think I met a guy at the Danville show. They're up north, Tippy Swim Baits, I think. But I was on their page the other day, and it doesn't look like they've had a whole lot of activity on there. So I don't know if they're still doing their thing or what, but they had a glide, like a resin, like a goby looking glide bait that they came out with. Uh, I'd actually talked to the guy about doing some painting for him, but nothing ever came about of it. But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
Yeah. Are you still doing some repaints, or are you getting away from repaints a little bit, or
Uh, yeah, I mean, I don't know.
I know some of those are tough.
I haven't really dialed in as far as what what I'd like to charge for it, because in my mind there's more work involved in a repaint than there is
Hmm.
painting a fresh blank. If I buy a
Yeah.
blank online, pull it out of the package, wash it, some of you might have to scuff up or whatever, but most of mine I don't do a whole lot with other than just clean them off and get all the oils and stuff off.
Yeah.
And but a repaint, you've got to sand it down, and some of them are, I did some repaints for a guy a while back that sent me a bunch of musky baits from up in Michigan, and those dudes had like a quarter inch of clear coat on them, and
Oh,
it
yeah.
just was so much work involved, just getting them ready to repaint. And in my mind, it just doesn't seem fair, I guess, to the buyer. If somebody already has 30, 50, $100 or whatever in a bait, like I don't want to turn around and tell them like just for me to put another paint job on, it's going to cost you, $50 or whatever. So
Hmm.
I don't know. Just I don't know if it makes sense. I've done a handful of them. I did a couple for Andy recently.
Hmm.
Usually when stuff like that pops up, if it's like a special project kind of deal or like a really cool bait, I'll probably bite on it and do it. But
Yeah.
it's not necessarily something I want to jump into right now and just start
Sure.
doing like crazy, like getting into a
Yeah.
bunch of crankbaits and stuff like that. So it's kind of hit or miss. It's one of those things where if you ask me and I'm in the mood for it, I might, but it's not something I want to regularly offer at the moment.
Yeah, it's getting tougher and tougher to find guys to do repaints for the exact reason you said. There's just so much work involved in stripping it down and getting it to where it's even paintable again. So,
Oh, and I mentioned the guy from Michigan. He actually asked me to do it again, and I kind of told him, I was like, I don't think so. And then I was like, you know what, whatever. I've already done it for you once. Like, I don't want to turn you away. Well, then when he sent me the pictures of the baits, one of them was one that I repainted, and he's like, I didn't really like. I decided I didn't like that pattern or whatever, and I was thinking about
yeah,
putting this on instead. And I'm like, you know what? I don't want to do this. I don't want to do repaints. Like I don't.
yeah,
It's bad enough having to repaint one. I don't want to repaint one
yeah,
I already repainted. So
right, right,
that's when I was like, And then when Andy hit me up at the boat show with those two baits,
yeah,
they were just super cool baits. And if people go on my YouTube or my Facebook page or whatever, they see pictures. But they were just really cool glide baits. One of them was a big bullfrog, and I
mm,
think you've seen it or whatever. So that
yeah.
was that was just a cool opportunity to paint something like that. I don't paint those blanks or paint anything like it. So I wanted to try it out. And like I said, with the YouTube channel, it's always nice to have some fresh ideas and some different stuff to look at for the subscribers and stuff. So,
Sure, sure. Speaking of baits, I think you got a few baits there to kind of show off and kind of talk about a little bit. What do you have down there?
well, I've got four baits I picked out, and I picked them out based on, like I said, my main focus is the realism
Hmm.
and like I said, I've got some oddball patterns and stuff, but this is one I have on my Etsy page right now, my Etsy shop. This is the junior version of the Hinko trout. It's a knockoff of the Hinkle trout.
Hmm.
Another one of those baits I think that's really hard to get, and when you can get them, uh, I think they're super expensive. I don't throw big giant, trout baits like this, but it was one of those deals where um, I wanted to do something cool for YouTube, and I didn't see a whole lot of Palomino trout on online at all. And the few that
Hmm.
I did see, I was like, yeah, well, those aren't very good. I'll see if I can do something better and cool looking or whatever. So I did that. It's a heavy bait too. I can't remember. I
Is that
can't remember
the
how. I can't remember. This is the junior, but it still weighs. I want to
okay?
say like 4 or 5 ounces or something like that. It's heavy. I wouldn't
Yeah,
want to throw this bait around all day. If I was on in a special area, like throwing for like big pike or muskie or something, or out west, then maybe. Um, and then we were talking about that Chad style blank earlier that I found online. This is the bluegill pattern I call Dream Bream. I've painted this pattern on a bunch of different blanks.
yeah,
This is kind of my rendition of a bluegill. I like to paint this pattern. It's got a little bit of a purple iridescence in the middle of it, and everything. Most of the stuff I do is all custom. Occasionally, I'll use like store bought stencils, but most of the stuff I do, like the barring and the stuff like the ear, it's all handmade stencils. I know that it doesn't mean a whole lot, but
yeah, man. That finished work on that one too is just that's awesome. That's beautiful.
yeah. And that's what I was going to say is you can tell sometimes when I see guys paint baits. There's so many people out there painting, and there's so many stencils and stuff on the market. You like, there's a specific bluegill pattern or smallmouth pattern or whatever, and I'll see it, and they still looks good. I'm not knocking it or anything, but like I said, you want to stand out and you want to be a little bit different. So I make most of my custom stencils, or I will use a stencil in a way that other people aren't using it to make it look different than just the same old bluegill with the same barring, or largemouth pattern with the same exact pattern as 50 other bait makers out there. Same with this little smallmouth pattern. I call this small jaw.
Yeah,
This
got
is a pattern I just painted a bunch of different blanks on the other day. This is a little 5-inch baby belly shad, I call it. Some people call them wee shads. There's a bunch of different names for them. This is kind of as far as I know, this and the big belly is just kind of a generic. I don't even know that they're a knockoff of anything. I think it's just a generic glide bait that's mass produced. Anybody can buy them. You see them all over Temu and Amazon.
hmm
But I've found a couple different suppliers that supply really good quality versions of them. They're really rugged baits. I've beat the crap out of a couple of those big bellies, just throwing them around here. I mean, I've got some ponds that have riprap and stuff, and I can't seem to knock the clear coat off of it or anything. And they have really good action. I think you've thrown a little bit of these smaller ones.
Yep, I've thrown both. I've thrown the big belly and the that smaller one, and I that smaller one, man, it's put a little bit of weight on it. Is what I typically do, just weigh it down a little bit. But man,
Yeah.
it's like my go to in some cooler water. So
And I don't know if that
it's really
picks up
good
in the
bait.
camera, but the
Oh,
smallmouth pattern has like a little bit of glitter on the back.
yeah,
Like I said, the barring and everything's kind of a custom, semi-custom stencil deal with it.
yeah,
And these those other little crank down two-piece swim baits and some top waters will be on the Etsy page available by the end of the weekend. I think I got to get some pictures and stuff of them and get them on there, but by the end of the weekend, those should be available.
very
Um,
nice.
and then last but not least is this is the big belly that I was just talking about, and this is actually a fully there might be a tiny bit of even airbrush work on this, but this is like a fully hand painted big belly natural shad. This is like about as natural as I can get it. This is
Yeah,
basically the same process I used for a replica. I just use it on a blank, and this is a 3D textured. Same with that smaller version I just had. It's a 3D textured bait, which, in my opinion, gives you the opportunity to make a more realistic pattern. You really get that scale detail, and there's some redness and stuff, kind of like skin tones that you'll see in bait fish, especially when they start to get worn out and die
yeah.
and get wounded and beat around in the current and all that. So
A little bit of pinkish to the color, very
yeah,
natural looking,
yep.
very natural looking eye.
And
Uh,
the baby belly and the big belly, all they all have the brush. This is
yeah,
more like a monofilament, but it's the same thing as like a brush tail or whatever that you see in a lot of the higher end resin baits. But yeah, and this bait, just for anybody that's watching this that's interested, I actually did a tutorial or whatever on my YouTube a good while back. If you want to check that out. But that's the only baits I had to show. I still have a
yeah,
bunch more down there, but these are the ones I put hook guards on. I didn't want to be up there fumbling around and hook myself during a
yeah,
podcast. So, and
yeah,
those were some more recent paint jobs and super realistic ones. So,
yeah. Look great, look great. So this year you're gonna do a few shows, right? You got a few shows this fall and this winter that you're kind of looking at. Is that right?
yeah, right now, um, I think I'm set up to. I'm gonna have my own space at the Danville Tackle Show, and you may know, I can't remember the dates of that. I want to say, what is that? Was that January?
It's early January.
Early
Yep.
January. I know last year, and some people that are familiar with me may have seen me with Bose Baits. We've talked a little bit about doing a little teaming up again, so you may see me with him somewhere. I'm not 100% sure. We haven't talked about it in a little while,
Mm.
but yeah, he's been gracious enough to let me share some space with him and kind of try to get me started. He's been doing it for a while and doing the shows, and he's familiar with all that. And um, I think there's what's that other show that you were talking to me about a while back? It's like a swap meet style.
Yeah, oh yeah, out at
Is that
Hendricks County
Shelbyville or
Fairgrounds. Yeah, Shelbyville.
so?
Yeah,
Yeah, I might try to do something like that. And then just any space that becomes available or opportunities that pop up, little festivals or anything like that. If I think it might be worthwhile to set up and share some of my stuff and try to sell some baits, I might. Like I said, I've got the Etsy shop going. I want to say I have like between 10 and 15 different baits on there. All the baits I've shown, besides that smallmouth that's not on there yet, all the stuff I showed tonight is on there for sale. That's kind of a slow start with that, but from what research I've done, seems pretty normal for Etsy. It's not
yep,
one of those things unless you're selling like a one of a kind product that you can't get from anybody else. It's going to take some time, just like YouTube or TikTok or whatever. It takes time to grow and
sure.
get your name out and all that. So I'm just going to keep trucking with it and keep putting the blood, sweat, and tears into it, and the quality and everything I can, and keep going with it, and see how it goes.
Yeah.
It's been
No.
fun so far. It's even if I'm not making a bunch of, because I'm not in it for the money. I mean, I'm not rich or anything like that. I mean, I joke around with my wife all the time and tell her that we're poor, and she disagrees with me, but uh, I don't. I'm not really doing it for the money. A lot of the money that I make on this, I turn around and just buy more blanks. Like I said, it's kind of like an addiction. I'll turn around
Yeah.
and buy more blanks, or buy a bunch of hooks or whatever it is that I need, and I'm not, and I'll spend a little bit on myself and splurge a little bit and get me a new rod or reel or some baits or whatever for myself. But a lot of it's just invested back into the company and just keep going and providing stuff for people. So
Sure. So what's the best way for people to get a hold of you, Joe, to order some baits if they have some custom colors?
I'd say the best way would be Messenger through Facebook, Instagram. I think I'm set up through like Business Suit or whatever now. So anything that you message me through, as far as TikTok, Messenger, Facebook Messenger, or Instagram, I get. So I'm fine with any of it. But I'd say the main one's probably Facebook Messenger, if you just want to shoot me a personal message or whatever. And if there's something custom or there's something that you don't see for sale, like I can get about any blank you can think of. Um, so yeah, that's the best way. And usually I just deal through PayPal or whatever. And I'd love, anybody that's interested that wants to support the Etsy shop that just opened up, on there. I just had a guy buy some stuff from me last week or the week before, and that was my first big sale on there. So
There
I
you
was
go.
kind of happy about that. But yeah, I'm still taking orders as well through. I actually just had a guy, a return customer, yesterday, the day before. He didn't come right out and say it, but it sounds like he lost the bait that I sold him. He only bought one of those small glide baits, and he said, "Man, I need to get a couple more of those baits from you." And I kind of asked him what happened, and I said, "Did you catch any fish on it or whatever?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, I caught a bunch of wipers," and then he sent me pictures of a big largemouth that he caught out of a farm pond or whatever. And but I feel like the untold story is that he snagged it or something and lost it and needed some more because he was in a hurry to get them. So I kind of rushed a couple more and got them shipped out in a couple days, and I'd say they're probably in his hands already. And I told him, and it's something that I'll say on here for anybody that sees it, but I'm probably gonna maybe run a contest or something here soon, just for customers or whatever, to send me pictures of fish they've caught on my baits or whatever, and maybe run some sort of a contest or a random drawing or something to give away a bait. Because I know that there's people out there catching fish, and I've talked to several people, and in the heat of the moment, people aren't taking pictures, or they're not thinking about it. Or there's some people who have had the pictures and just forgot to send them to me, but I'd love to get all the pictures I can of success on the water, from people, for my pages or whatever. So
Awesome. He, kind of wrapping up here a little bit. Have anybody you want to thank that helps you get out on the water, or anybody sponsors or anything you want to call out?
Yeah. First and foremost, Moving Water Outfitters. I mean, those guys have helped me out tremendously. Times that I haven't even, been necessarily ready to get back out on the water, or wasn't quite prepared. They've always been there for me, and they've always helped me out and kind of pushed me to keep going. And you and Mike and all the guys at the shop and Matt, you guys have all been great. And that's kind of where I got my start from the very beginning. Back in the day with Moving Water Outfitters, and they carry great stuff. They've got about anything you can ask for, and they're always there to help out, and very informative guys there at the shop. So thanks to them. I just recently started working with Solar Bat. I've been using their sunglasses for a while now, for the last few years. So I'm on their team now, and I just want to thank them for letting me join up, and just got another pair of glasses the other day. And kind of that time of the year now, where especially in the waters I fish, where you can start sight fishing and bed fishing and all that good stuff. So thanks to them. Um, Thanks to you for having me on here, and it's a good opportunity. And I want to give Bo a shout out. Like I said, Bo's helped me out over the last year or so. Chatted with him a lot, and he's doing his thing over on his channel and doing his giveaways and his lives and all that stuff. And I try to tune into those whenever I can. So if anybody's wanting to see any other work or whatever, that's something to check out. So thanks to him, and I know we're talking about possibly doing a kind of a triple threat whatnot show. So
I
that
have
might be something to watch out for.
I have too much stuff, and the three amigos are going to get together and sell some stuff. So
Well, sounds like at the least it'd be a good time.
yeah, yeah, for sure. So, all right, Joe. Well, I appreciate it, man. And we'll hopefully see you on the water here soon. I know I came down and fished the Atterbury event. That was tough. But hey, that's the way it goes, man. We need to get together and do some fishing. So,
Yeah, for sure. I'll be getting out on Eagle Creek this Monday for the Grubby tournament there. So hopefully that goes well. I haven't fished that lake in a while, so
yeah,
we'll definitely have to
awesome.
get together and do some fishing.
Sounds good, man. Have a good day, and I appreciate you being on the show.
Yep, thanks for having me. We'll see you.
Awesome. All right, everybody. Matt Gibson again here, just wrapping it up a little bit. Yeah, well, I mean, how awesome of a show was that? Remember, get on the YouTube page. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube page, the Facebook page. We are the Limit Podcast on both of those platforms. We are on Instagram as well. Hey, if there's something you want to hear about, if you want us to tackle a topic, it doesn't matter what it is. Phil and I are not scared to talk about it. Get a hold of us. We would like to have as many people on as we can too. So go on, subscribe to all the channels. Check out phfishing.com. Also, letter G. Get with Joe. Get some baits. And hey, if you have the opportunity, take somebody fishing, take a neighbor fishing, take a kid fishing, introduce them to the outdoors, and let's get more people out there fishing. We'll see you next time.